So I just finished the book Getting Things Done, and there were some interesting ideas in there that I kind of wanted to talk about and really expand on a little bit. And it kind of starts with the premise, and not the book itself, but the part I want to talk about starts with the premise that there's more things in a day than we have time to get to, right? And first thing I want to do is just challenge that premise a little bit because I feel like there maybe have been times in my life and maybe times in other people's lives where there aren't that many things that we feel like we have to get done, but doing those few things is a bit of a challenge, right? And I feel like for me, it's been a feeling of kind of a lack of motivation or lack of energy or lack of willpower or something like that that's just preventing me from taking action, making me procrastinate, just having me feel like kind of sitting around doing other things instead of doing these few things that I am claiming are important to me, right? And I don't think I'm alone in this. So, first thing I want to talk about is that motivation, right? And thinking about motivation and how to become more motivated reminds me of another book. It reminds me of the book Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, right? And there are some things in that book that I maybe question. So there's not a full-throated endorsement. But one of the kind of interesting things, and I feel like valuable things in that book that it presents, is it kind of talks about different levels of consciousness or kind of emotional states and how some emotions or levels of consciousness can give you more energy than some others, right? And I think this, I feel like I've observed to be true, and I feel like can be used to help you gain more energy if you're looking for that, right? And one of the things it talks about is that apathy is a very low energy kind of level to be at, right? So this feeling of, it doesn't really matter, I don't really care, it's not really going to make a difference, that itself is a very low energy place to be, right? And what I have found in myself and others is that to the extent that I am feeling that or that others are feeling that, shifting to different kind of emotional states or ways of thinking about things can be very helpful and can help generate and kind of be a fuel for you, kind of generate more energy and be a fuel for you. So, this is big if you use it in the right way, right? And it doesn't, it can be kind of a thing of like a sense of purpose maybe that you shift to and really feel like, man, I'm helping others, I'm really adding to the world, I'm really creating, I'm really, expanding and growing. And that kind of brings you energy when you feel like you can kind of be a beacon outward. That is one thing. Another thing that I feel like is talked about, and that will lead me kind of back into my original point, is sometimes what helps to kind of get out of this sense of apathy and get a little bit more motivation can even be kind of leaning into a bit of anger or frustration. Like, man, I'm tired of being where I'm at. I'm tired of the life I'm living. I'm tired of this squalor. I want more. I want better. I'm ready to push myself. Now, the thing with this too, and with the kind of anger and even both sides wanting to shift to a different state and recognizing that you're not there yet is a pitfall that I often see, and that is sometimes happen with my own self, is that we can be hard on ourselves, right? And I feel like when we're being hard on ourselves, when we're beating ourselves up, that is also a lower energy thing, right? That can sap motivation. That can be a drain on you, can be kind of a chain that's tied around your waist, pulling you back, holding you down. And so, as you're shifting to these different emotional states, as you're working to gain higher levels of energy, as you're working to cultivate a greater internal motivation, be kind to yourself. But that doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't challenge yourself as well, right? Now, this leads directly back into kind of what I alluded to earlier, the book I just finished, Getting Things Done, and it talking about realizing that there are more things that you like to do in a day than you have time for, right? And I feel like that is not really a kind of bad premise to start with because most of the time, I feel like in our lives, there's always more to be done. And if you feel like, hey, I could get everything done today that I really need to, then, a natural question could be, well, why not expand? Why not, raise the bar? Why not try and do more so that, you'll spend today working and then also give yourself the treat of having more things to do tomorrow. And I feel like that is even a good way to think about it and reframe it. It's subtle there, but powerful. I think some people will really pick up on that and take advantage of it. So maybe you'll end up kind of rewinding that back or writing that down and cultivating that. But starting with that premise, right, there's kind of three things the author presents as ideas to help deal with the tasks in these situations, right, and approaching tasks in these situations. One of them is, of course, work harder, right? And I feel like that gets into a bit of like the grind culture that I feel like has become popularized in certain corners or parts of the internet, of the webosphere. And this grind culture, I feel like, again, can be very motivating, right? I feel like you often see some famous self help people, doing videos where they're just out in the middle of a run. More to be done. Keep working. You know exactly who I'm talking about, don't you? And that's good, right? That stuff is helpful. Like I'm joking about it because I've watched these videos, right? And they're good. So there is the grind culture, but again, I feel like it has to be balanced with being kind to yourself, right? So all you're doing is beating yourself up, talking about how you're not there yet, how all you have to do is work harder, then that can again be something that ends up sapping your energy, right? So it can be both that you're becoming more motivated with this shift in perspective, with this push to really work harder, to really get to that next level, to really be the best version of yourself. And great. But also, if there is this bit along with it of, I'm not enough yet, I'm not there yet, I'm not good enough yet, I'm not valuable enough yet, I need to work hard to create this extra value, to share this extra value with others, then it can pull you back as well, right? So the net can still be a positive thing, can still help you gain energy. But what you'd really like is all the movement forward without the steps backwards as well, without the things holding you down or slowing you down as well, right? So it is a balance, right? Both things can be true. With this grind culture, though, and with this idea of just getting more done, there's also still the natural limit that we all face of we all have the same amount of time of just 24 hours in a day. And so you're always going to be bumping up into a limit of what you can do in one day. And what I feel like often isn't talked about enough in some of the grind culture is efficiency of effort, right? That just working harder, sure, all else being equal, will help you get things done. But there's working harder and there's also working smarter, right? And again, this is not a you either work harder or you work smarter. You can do both. And so that is like the goal is to work harder, but to work harder in a smart, efficient, optimal way, right? So what are the things that are going to give me the most bang for my buck, right? That are going to move me the farthest in a given amount of time, that are going to help me get closest to my goal with a certain amount of effort. And then doing those things, how do I do more of them? with the time that I have or that I'm willing to dedicate towards a certain goal or a certain task or a certain endeavor. So, of course, working harder is good. Also, within there, you want to be working smarter. Very good. And there are other ways to think about the challenge of there are many things that I want to do in a day, but my time is limited and I can't do them all. Right. So, another idea brought up in the book is lower your standards. All right. Now, I can feel this being a little bit of a needle poking at some people right there. Like, why would I want to lower my standards? Right. Right. That would be going against me and who I am and what I'm about to lower my standards. Good. I think that is good that you feel that way. Also, again, what I would say is sometimes in our minds, when we realize there are multiple things to be done, and of course, we can only be doing one thing at a time, it can feel like a bit of a failure or a letdown or a disappointment to not be doing more, right? And so, if you are able to lower your standards to say, well, some things are just not going to get done, it can be a way of helping to avoid that kind of beating yourself up, right? Of putting yourself down, of feeling like, man, I am not enough or I am not doing enough, right? And so, if that is effective for you, if that is the best way to move forward for you, that is something you should consider, right? And if you have a just visceral, no, I don't want to do that reaction, good, you know what you're about, but also still give the idea some thought, right? Sometimes it is these things that we feel like are very much against what we would originally think that could be helpful for us if we did them. And the fact that we haven't done them and feel like they are so abrasive to us is maybe what is also keeping us from getting to that next level, right? And so I would say that it's not even necessarily a thing about changing who you are or what you stand for, but it's about realizing that you want to be the best version of yourself. And sometimes being that best version of yourself may mean using different tools to help you get to that next level. And that would be kind of the reframe that I would suggest is that don't think of it as I'm having to change who I am, I'm having to change my standards, I'm having to lower my standards. Maybe you think of it as I'm using this tool to deal with the reality that I'm currently facing in a more effective way, right? And that is not changing who you are. It's you being adaptable. It's you using kind of what is around you in the world, realizing who you are, using the things that work best for you to get the best outcomes, right? So don't even think of it as necessarily lowering your standards, but maybe think about it as realizing who you are and what is effective for you, and then using that to navigate your life in the best way. The third thing, which is kind of similar to the second that I've touched on in the way that I see it, which is a little bit different than the way it was presented in the book, is re is adjusting your goals, right? So maybe you think, okay, I have these 10 things and I want to get them all done today. Maybe you realize that you can only get done 6 of them. So maybe you say, man, instead of me thinking there are these 10 things, I want to get them all day, I can only do six. Maybe you say, okay, well, 4 of these things, instead of deciding that I want to get it done today, I'm going to decide that I want to get it done over the next 3 or 4 days, right? And so you're kind of giving yourself the grace to extend the timeline there, right? Or maybe you end up kind of saying, well, you know, I wanted to do 5 miles today when I did my run, and because of my schedule and everything else, I'm only going to do three, right? that it's not, or maybe I'm gonna do 3 now and then 2 later in the day, something like that. It's kind of an adjustment, or in the book they say a renegotiation of your goal so that you're ending up in a place that you wanna be, while also realizing and being aware of the constraints that you're facing with the limited time that you have. And so I feel like all 3 of these can be effective, and it will take, what I talked about earlier, is kind of realizing who you are, where you're at, what is best for you. And I think that can be a little bit not straightforward for folks, but what I would also suggest is try different things, right? I feel like oftentimes what I've seen in myself and others is that we want to tweak things for big improvements, right? That we feel like we're already on the right track. We already have good ideas. We already know where we want to go and how to get there. But when we see we're not quite getting there, we think, okay, if I could just do this or that, then I would be able to get there, right? And I feel like this brings me back to what's brought up in the book, the 10x rule, is that especially when it comes to things that we haven't done, we can have a tendency to underestimate how hard it will be, right? If it's our first time doing something, then we don't have a good idea of what it would really take to achieve that thing some of the times, right? And so, with that being the case, we have to realize that it may be longer, harder, more effort, more time than we originally planned, and we'll have to accept that, right? And that even gets back to, if we're accepting that, what I mentioned earlier is sometimes maybe expand out, right? Make the goals bigger, make the kind of vision bigger. And with that bigger vision, that can also be a sense of motivation, right? Something to help propel you to greater levels of energy, to accomplishing more with the limited time that we all will have. So, I hope you've taken something from this video. I hope you find some ideas that maybe are a little bit uncommon, or that you haven't thought about or tried out before. And I hope that you're able to kind of examine yourself and think about what will be best for me in this particular situation that you're in. Because what I feel like is, to really make big, huge changes, we have to get outside of our comfort zone, right? Small tweaks, I feel like, help with incremental growth, incremental changes. Big radical shifts happen outside of our comfort zone. And sometimes it will take being outside of our comfort zone to really have these big breakthroughs and to really get to that next level in terms of fulfilling our potential. So, take care, and I'll see you soon.